What if I told you? The thing stealing your peace is not your problems, but your thoughts about your problems. Think about that. Not the event. Not the person. Not the situation. But the endless replay in your mind. The constant questioning. The endless, what if? What if I fail? What if they judge me? What if I lose everything? What if I'm not enough? And before you know it, a single thought becomes a storm. A storm so loud, you can't hear yourself anymore. That is overthinking. And overthinking is dangerous. Not because thinking is bad, but because too much thinking can become a prison. A prison where your body is free, but your mind is trapped. You smile in front of people, but inside, your mind is fighting battles nobody can see. Battles from yesterday. Battles from tomorrow. Battles that may never even happen. And here is the tragedy. Most people spend their whole lives preparing for pain. Instead of living, they rehearse fear. Rehearse failure. Rehearse rejection. And then wonder why peace feels impossible. But the Stoics understood something powerful. Peace does not come from controlling life. Peace comes from controlling your response to life. That changes everything. Because if your peace depends on the world, you will never have peace. The world changes. People change. Situations change. But if your peace depends on your own mind, now you have power. Real power. Not power over people. Power over yourself. And that is the strongest power in existence. Today, we are going to break the habit of overthinking. Not by force, but by awareness. By discipline. By stoic emotional reset. And by the end of this video, you will understand how to stop mental chaos. Take back your attention. And rebuild emotional control. But first, you need to understand why overthinking feels so powerful. Part 1, Why overthinking feels like control. Overthinking feels useful. That's why it's hard to stop. It feels like you are doing something. Like you are solving something. Like if you just think a little longer, you will finally feel safe. But safety through thought is an illusion. Because thought has no finish line. One thought creates another. And another. And another. Until your mind becomes a maze. Let me tell you a story. There was once a man walking through a forest. As night fell, he heard a sound behind him. A crack in the leaves. His heart started racing. He thought, it must be danger. He walked faster. The sound followed. He panicked. Started running. The sound got louder. His fear grew stronger. Finally, he reached a clearing and turned around. And there it was. Not a wolf. Not an enemy. Just the sound of his own bag hitting the trees as he ran. The danger was never real. But his mind made it real. That is overthinking. The mind creates enemies. Then reacts to them. And your body suffers for battles that aren't real. That is why you feel exhausted. Not because life is too heavy. But because your mind keeps lifting things that don't exist. The Stoic truth about thoughts. Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Simple. But powerful. Because overthinking is reaction. Not reality. Reality is often simple. But thought complicates it. Reality. Someone didn't text back. Thought. They're ignoring me. They're angry. I said something wrong. Reality. You made a mistake. Thought. I ruin everything. I'll never recover. Reality. Someone criticized you. Thought. They hate me. I'm worthless. Do you see it? The event is one thing. The story is another. And suffering lives in the story. Not the event. The story of the two arrows. The Stoics taught something like this. Pain is the first arrow. Your reaction is the second. The first arrow may hit. That's life. Rejection. Failure. Loss. Pain. But the second arrow. That is optional. That is the arrow you shoot at yourself. Through overthinking. Through self-blame. Through replaying pain. Imagine getting rejected once. And reliving it 50 times in your mind. That is 50 extra wounds. You gave yourself. Stop shooting the second arrow. Why your brain loves overthinking. Your brain believes overthinking protects you. It says, if I replay it, I can prevent it. If I imagine every outcome, I'll be ready. But here's the truth. Preparation is helpful. Obsession is harmful. There is a difference. Preparation says, I will do my best. Obsession says, what if my best isn't enough? Preparation builds. Obsession drains. And many people confuse the two. Short story, The Cup of Tea. A student once asked his teacher, how do I stop my mind from racing? The teacher poured tea into a cup. He kept pouring. The cup overflowed. Tea spilled everywhere. The student said, stop. It's full. The teacher smiled. So is your mind. You cannot pour peace into a full mind. First, you must empty it. Empty regret. Empty fear. Empty imagined futures. Only then can peace enter. The first Stoic reset, return to what you control. Here is your first reset. Ask yourself, what is in my control? Not what do I wish I could control. What actually is. Your thoughts. Your actions. Your discipline. That's it. Not opinions. Not outcomes. Not other people's behavior. And overthinking usually lives in what you cannot control. That's why it hurts. You are trying to control the uncontrollable. And that creates tension. Release it. Bring your attention back. Back to your actions. Back to your choices. Back to yourself. That is where control lives. Exercise, the Stoic question. Every time you catch yourself spiraling, ask, is this in my control? If yes, act. If no, release. That single question can save you years of suffering. Because clarity destroys confusion. And overthinking feeds on confusion. Part 2 Preview. But understanding overthinking is not enough. You must break the habit. Because habits return. Patterns repeat. And the mind always goes where it has been trained to go. In the next part, we will break the overthinking loop. Build emotional discipline. And create a Stoic emotional reset system. But before we continue, if this message speaks to you, subscribe to the Stoic Path. Because here, we train the mind. We strengthen discipline. And we build peace from within. Not from the world. Stop anxiety and take back control. Let me ask you something. When was the last time your mind was actually quiet? Not sleeping. Not distracted. Not scrolling your phone. But truly, quiet. Because for most people today, silence doesn't feel peaceful anymore. It feels uncomfortable. And that is where anxiety begins. Not in the world outside you. But in the world inside you. You wake up, and before your feet even touch the floor. Your mind is already racing. What if today goes wrong? What if they don't like me? What if I fail again? What if I'm not enough? And without noticing, you start living your entire life inside imaginary conversations, imaginary judgments, and imaginary futures that may never even happen. You check your phone. Not because you need something, but because you're afraid of missing something. You compare your life to people who are also pretending to be okay. And slowly, you lose control of the only thing you were ever meant to control. Yourself. But here's the truth most people never hear. Anxiety is not always a disorder. Sometimes, it is a signal. A signal that your attention is in the wrong place. Because every time you focus on what others are doing, every time you worry about how others see you, every time you try to control what is not yours, you slowly abandon your own mind. And the Stoics knew this thousands of years ago. They understood something powerful. Peace is not found in controlling the world. It is found in controlling your attention. So today, you are going to learn how to take that control back. Not by fighting the world, but by returning to yourself. By the end of this video, you will understand how to silence mental chaos. Stop feeding anxiety. And finally focus on what actually matters. Your thoughts. Your actions. Your life. But first, you have to understand where anxiety really comes from. Part 1, the real root of anxiety: you are looking outside too much. Anxiety does not come from danger. It comes from imagination. Let me tell you a short story. There was a young man who always felt nervous in social situations. Every time he walked into a room, he felt like everyone was watching him. He would overthink every step, every word, every expression. Do I look awkward? Did I say the wrong thing? Are they judging me? One day, he decided to test something. He walked into a crowded cafe. And instead of thinking about himself, he focused only on others. He watched people laugh. He watched people eat. He watched people talk. And something strange happened. Nobody was watching him. Nobody cared. Everyone was busy living inside their own heads. Just like him. And in that moment, something inside him collapsed. Not him. But the illusion. The illusion that everyone is thinking about you. That is the first lie anxiety tells you. You are being watched more than you actually are. And the truth is, people are too busy worrying about themselves to obsess over you. But anxiety tricks you into believing otherwise. And every time you believe that lie, you leave your own life. And enter a mental prison built from opinions that don't even exist. The Stoic shift: control the focus, not the world. The Stoics divided life into two categories. What you can control. And what you cannot. Your thoughts. Your actions. Your discipline. That is yours. Everything else. Opinions. Reactions. Approval. Judgment. That is not yours. But anxiety happens when you reverse this order. You try to control how people see you, how life unfolds, how others behave. And you ignore the only thing you truly own. Your attention. Let me say that again clearly. You are not anxious because life is hard. You are anxious because your attention is scattered everywhere except yourself. Part 2, the mind that never stays home. There is a silent habit almost everyone has. Your mind does not stay where your body is. You are eating, but thinking about tomorrow. You are resting, but thinking about yesterday. You are talking, but thinking about how you are being perceived. You are never fully here. And a mind that is never present becomes a mind that is always anxious. Because anxiety cannot survive in the present moment. It only survives in imagination. Let me show you something simple. Right now. Pause for a second. Look around you. Notice 5 things you can see. Notice 3 things you can hear. Notice your breathing. In this moment, there is no problem. But the moment your mind leaves this moment, it creates problems that do not exist. That is the trap. Short story, The Man and the Shadow. There was once a man walking home at night. He noticed a shadow behind him. He became afraid. His heart started racing. He walked faster. The shadow followed. He ran. The shadow ran too. Eventually he stopped at a lighted street. And turned around. There was no one behind him. The enemy he feared was his own shadow. That is anxiety. A shadow created by your own mind. That grows stronger the more you run from it. Part 3, Stop feeding what hurts you. Most people think anxiety is something that attacks them. But the Stoics would say something different. You are feeding it. Every time you overthink, you feed it. Every time you check for approval, you feed it. Every time you replay conversations, you feed it. Anxiety does not grow on its own. It grows through attention. And attention is power. So the real question is not, how do I get rid of anxiety? The real question is, what am I giving my attention to? Because whatever you feed grows. Practical Stoic reset. Start small. When you notice overthinking, name it, this is imagination. Bring your attention back to what you are doing. Ask, is this in my control right now? If not, release it. Not fight it. Not argue with it. Just release it. Because control is not force. Control is direction. You see, anxiety is not your enemy. It is a signal that your mind has left home too often. And every time you return to yourself, you weaken it. Not by force, but by awareness. But we are just getting started. Because next, we will go deeper into how to rebuild inner stability. And how to stop caring about what people think completely. So you can finally live on your own terms. And before you continue, if this message is speaking to you, then subscribe to the Stoic Path. Because here, we don't chase noise. We build minds that cannot be shaken. You have to understand something very important now. Real change is not about motivation. Motivation fades. Real change is about identity. Because you will always return to who you believe you are. So if you still see yourself as someone who is anxious, someone who overthinks, someone who needs approval, then no matter what techniques you learn, you will always drift back there. So the real question is not, how do I stop anxiety? The real question is, who am I becoming when no one is watching? Step 1, destroy the old identity. Let's be honest. A lot of your anxiety is not new. It is repeated patterns. Same thoughts. Same fears. Same reactions. Different days. So the first step is not adding something new. It is removing something old. You must mentally detach from the version of you that overthinks everything. When anxiety shows up, do not say, I am anxious. Instead say, a part of me is trying to overthink again. That small shift changes everything. Because you are no longer the problem. You are the observer of the problem. And what you observe, you can change. Short story, The Man Who Changed His Name Inside His Mind. There was a man who struggled with fear his entire life. Every decision felt heavy. Every conversation felt dangerous. One day, he started doing something unusual. Whenever fear appeared, he gave it a name. He called it, "Bold me." So when fear said, "Don't try that, you might fail," he would respond, "Ah, that's old me talking again." And slowly, something shifted. Because he stopped identifying with fear. And once you stop identifying with something, it loses control over you. Step 2, build the new identity. Now you don't just remove the old version. You replace it. A Stoic identity is simple. I focus only on what I control. I do not chase approval. I act even when uncomfortable. I observe my thoughts, not obey them. You are not trying to feel confident. You are becoming someone who acts regardless of feeling. Because confidence is not a feeling. It is a record of actions repeated. Every time you do what you said you would do, you strengthen your identity. Every time you avoid what matters, you weaken it. Step 3, the 3-layer Stoic discipline system. If you want long-term control over anxiety, you need structure, not emotion. Here is the Stoic discipline system. 1. Morning control, set direction. Before you check your phone, ask yourself, what kind of person am I today? What do I control today? What will I refuse to waste energy on? This tells your mind, I am in charge today. Not the world. Not notifications. Not other people. You. 2. Midday reset, interrupt anxiety loop. At some point during the day, your mind will drift. That is normal. But do this. Pause. Breathe slowly. And ask. Am I inside reality, or inside my thoughts? Because anxiety always pulls you into thoughts. Never reality. Bring yourself back. Again and again. That is discipline. Not perfection. 3. Night reflection, identity strengthening. Before sleep, do not scroll endlessly. Instead reflect. Where did I lose control of my attention today? Where did I stay disciplined? What will I improve tomorrow? This is how you slowly rewire your mind. Not in one day, but in repeated awareness. Short story, The Garden of Two Men. 2 men had gardens. One man constantly worried. What if the soil is bad? What if rain doesn't come? What if my plants die? So he never planted properly. The second man simply worked. He planted. He watered. He adjusted. One garden became full of life. The other remained empty. Not because of luck, but because one man lived in fear, while the other lived in action. That is the difference between anxiety and control. Step 4, final Stoic reset. Here is something most people never accept. You will never control every thought. You will never eliminate anxiety completely. But you can train your response to it. And that changes everything. Because freedom is not the absence of anxiety. Freedom is, I can feel this, and still act correctly. That is mastery. That is stoicism. That is power. Final message. You are not weak because you feel overwhelmed. You are human. But you are becoming aware. And awareness is the beginning of control. So from today, do not fight your mind. Guide it. Do not chase approval. Build direction. Do not escape discomfort. Use it as training. Because slowly, quietly, day by day, you are rebuilding yourself. Not into someone perfect, but into someone unshakable. If this message helped you, then subscribe to the Stoic Path. Because here, we don't escape life. We learn how to master it. And remember, You don't need to control everything. You only need to control yourself. And that is enough.